All right, let's talk about UFC 303 and how many picks I got right. Not a whole lot. Um, so let's start with let's see, Simone and Oliveira. Oliveira looks promising. Um, Ricky, I don't know. He was pretty contained there. It was he needed to really push in there. It seemed like when he was getting in there, he was landed, but uh, yeah, I don't know. Unanimous decision for Oliveira. Sure, it was not a super exciting fight, but it was not a bad fight. Um, Carlos and Rhea, that was a good fight for the first two rounds. I felt like the first two rounds were super competitive. A lot of scrambles, jiu-jitsu was really quite good. And the third round, I think Rhea got super tired. And Carlos, if there was 5 rounds, seemed like obviously that's just they didn't train for 5 rounds, so it doesn't matter. But Carlos started taking over at that point and pretty much dominated him in the third round. So I I don't know. If Carlos would have turned that on in the second round, he would have won that fight. Arlovski and Budai. um, yeah, I about halfway through the fight, I realized Andre should retire. He's basically it's like he's just staying safe in there, kind of, and there was no real push, but I did think he won the fight, but uh, Budai, I think he might want to consider retiring as well. But Andre did retire after the fight, I guess. So we won't see him in the cage again. It's been a great run for Andre. I remember watching him since Strikeforce or yeah, Affliction. Let's see, Michelle Watterson, Gomes, and Julian Robertson was a good fight. Julian was unable to submit Michelle, which I thought she was going to be able to. So that was pretty surprising to me that she was able to pull that off and stay in there. She's a brown belt, but Julian's super high level. So props to Michelle for not getting submitted, and Michelle retired. So the karate hottie is no more. Peyton Talbot, that dude's scary. That Giannis didn't even have a. I mean, he looked like he just got hit by a bus. So props to Peyton Talbot. Charles Jourdain, Jean Silva. Yeah, Jourdain's never been finished before, so never been knocked out, and I don't think finished or knocked out. And in it, I don't think he's been finished in any shape or form. So, props to Silva there. For I mean, he was hurting him with everything he landed. It seemed like, but Silva did miss weight, so that ain't great. Cub Swanson, AJ Feely, or Andre Feely, sorry. I had picked Andre to win. I was right on that pick, but I feel like Cub won that fight. So I think Cub won that fight pretty. I mean, Cub hurt him several times, and I felt like was real close to having him out of there. So it's obvious Cub Swanson can still take shots. He's still got a lot of power. He could still do something in there if he wanted to continue. But it's been a great run with Cub. So sorry he lost that fight, but I think he won it. I think everybody there thinks he won it. Joe Pyfer, as Dana White once said, be Joe Pyfer. So Joe Pyfer came out and dominated, and yeah, that was a big statement. So Joe Pyfer is going to be moving up quick again. His last fight was a little bit of a setback. He had a terrible training camp. I mean, everybody has bad training camp, so that is what it is. But yeah, great fight, Joe. Ian and MVP. It was just like I thought it was going to be on the feet. I got the pick wrong. Here I thought MVP would win. I did not think MVP's ground game was that bad. Not that it's horrible, but man, if he wants to compete in that division, he's really going to have to step up that ground game because, having, when somebody gets you in a body lock and holding them in a headlock while they rotate to your back, if you don't know to not do that, that's going to be a real issue with some of these high level grapplers in the division. So, and especially now that they've seen that happen. and just the way he was defending stuff showed his lack of experience on the ground. And Ian Machado Gary, he's good on the ground, for sure. I believe he's a black belt. He's but on the feet, man, MVP was way faster. Ian looked lost on the feet, to tell you the truth. I feel like Ian was, it was either he was lost on the feet or he was just really focused on getting takedowns and dominating that way, like really just focused on the game plan, which is possible. But yeah, I would have gave it, I think it was a draw, or I would have gone with MVP on that personally, because Ian did nothing. Didn't do any damage to him at all. He almost submitted in the first round, but outside of that, that's it. But yeah, I got that pick wrong. And it was not the greatest fight, which is kind of what I thought. Myra and Macy, that was a super competitive fight for the 2 rounds that it lasted. I think that both of them have a lot to give in the division now, and Macy was fighting like I've never seen her fight before, and Myra looked really good in there too. So I can't wait to see both of them back. It was a nice breath of fresh air after the MVP and Ian Gary fight, because they were just going at it. Those 2 girls were just going at it. And Julian from earlier, Myra is, I think, she's the only girl in MMA to submit Julian. So, but she is a weight class above her. So Myra's got excellent jiu-jitsu. And then we saw Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze. So, speaking of, I picked Myra to win that fight, so I was wrong on that. It was due to a cut. Who knows who would have won? That was odd too, because the doctor did not stop that fight. The ref stopped the fight. So the doctor said, they're good to continue. It's up to you. She wanted to continue. The blood wasn't terrible in her eyes. It was going to the sides of her eyes. I think he should have let it go. I wasn't there though. I wasn't looking at her forehead, at the bone in her, at her skull through that cut. So, but yeah. Anyway, Anthony Smith, Roman. That was what I expected, but what I was hoping wouldn't happen. I picked Roman to win, so I was right there. But I wanted Anthony Smith to win. I wanted to see that fire back in Anthony Smith. I did not see that. I don't think Anthony Smith, I don't think his heart's in the fighting game anymore. So I think that his heart's, I think his heart's in fighting. I don't think his heart's in competition, maybe. In terms of, like, I know when he gets in there, he's got all the heart in the world. That dude will, die on his shield. He's never going to complain. It doesn't matter. He's, if we all remember him getting kneed in the head by John Jones, he could have been a champion right there and taken that belt. And that's just not who he is. But he doesn't seem like he really wants to be in there. Like, it's the top priority in his life, is being in there. And it's like what he lives and breathes. It doesn't seem like that is him anymore. So I do think that if he can't make that switch, then he should probably, go ahead and retire and stick to commenting. I love his commentary, and I love his podcast, and I love him as a fighter. So if he can make that switch mentally and come back with a vengeance, that's awesome. I'll be right there. But kind of went how I expected. Roman, I feel like that fight was there for Anthony to take. Roman wasn't showing anything that was super surprising to me. But Roman did a great job. He moved up a weight class and did what he had to do. So, it was a super friendly fight. The next fight, this was a bit of a shocker here. Brian Ortega got pulled out. He had a 103-degree fever, so he had to pull out. And Dan Ige showed up on 3 hours' notice. Dan Ige is out of Extreme Couture in Vegas, so right down the road. I guess he was getting a massage when he got the phone call to show up at a fight in 3 hours. And he showed up and dominated the 3rd round, I thought. And came close to winning that fight. If Diego is a madman, though. Those guys are both G's. So Diego, think about what he went through. He signed up for a 145-pound fight with Brian Ortega. He gets a call at 3:30 in the morning, the day before weigh-in, the morning of weigh-ins, I should say. They need to move the fight to 155. So Diego stops his weight cut, right? Diego weighs in at like 151. Brian Ortega weighs in at 155. Then he gets another call. Hey, dude, Brian Ortega's out 4 hours before his fight, 3 hours before his fight. We want to put Dan Ige in, and we want to fight at 165. Diego goes, okay. There's not a whole lot of fighters in the world that would do that right now, especially when they're up and coming. And Dan Ige is a monster. He's got monster knockout power and insane boxing. And Diego went out there and boxed with him and did great. So yeah, I'm fine with the win for Diego. I probably would have picked Diego to win this fight. I don't really know, actually. I might have picked Dan. I'm not sure. It's super. That would have been a really hard pick for me. So yeah, anyway, props to both. And what's cool is they're both going to be fighting at the Sphere now. So that'll be really fun to watch because Dan Ige is always a gamer, and Diego showed himself to be. He has in his past fights, but against somebody like Dan Ige to go out there and box like that was fantastic. So great fight. And Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka. That's why I changed my mind on the fight, was the look in Yuri's eyes when they faced off. I felt like Yuri was putting too much into the stuff he was saying. I felt like his head wasn't there, locked in with exactly what he was going to do in that fight. And I watched Alex's post-fight interview, and he said that he had seen him some of his warm-up on TV, and that Yuri was overcompensating for the leg kick, which was leaving his head open, and that's why they planned to throw that left high kick. So he was just waiting for the timing. He realized that when he was countering the leg kick and warm-ups, that Yuri's timing was off with it. So probably with dropping his hand. And this happened.
Prochazka has recovered.
And to be fair, right at the end of the first round, he dropped Yuri, and then that's, unbelievable. Unbelievable. That was, we gotta watch it again one more time. You see his hand? Look at his hand. Where it's at right here. That foot. Oh, gosh. Dude, it's so quick. What's special about it, the way he kicks, is when he turns his hip over at the very last second. So it's like you don't see it coming because he's not swinging his hip until the last second. He's whipping it like around and down right at the last second. So his kicks are special. But yeah, the face-off was like, or the face-off, the stare down when Alex walked out and they both were in the cage was like 4.5 minutes straight. They just stared at each other. So it's crazy. But yeah, I had Yuri up until I saw him in person talking and what he was talking about. And when him and Alex came face to face, I picked Alex because something was up with Yuri in terms of his mindset. I felt like was too focused on other things. I think he was focused on what Alex was going to do and not on what Yuri was going to do. And Yuri has always focused on what Yuri was going to do, and that's what made him great. So he still is great, and I hope he comes back strong. So overall, it was a interesting card. It wasn't the best card, that's for sure, but that fight at the end was worth it. Dan Ige fight Diego was worth it for sure. And Macy and Myra was a great fight too. So on the main card, yeah, not a bad card.